Thank you everyone for joining. We'll get started in just a moment. Folks, another minute to join. Okay, I think it's 1 minute after the hour, so I think we can get started. So thank you everyone for joining our latest Caring for the Caregiver webinar series. Today's webinar is in celebration of National Healthcare Decisions Day, this coming Sunday, but is really celebrated all month long. And so we are honored to be hosting this webinar in partnership with the Conversation Project. I am Molly Evans. I'm the Senior Programs Manager at the Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and I have the honor and the privilege of planning this webinar series each month. So if you haven't joined our webinars before, allow me to provide some background on this series. We launched in May of 2021, so almost 2 years ago, I can't believe it. And the purpose of the series is to provide simple tips, practical solutions, and information on community resources to support family caregivers throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And each webinar focuses on a different facet of caregiving for family caregivers. So today we are honored to be hosting the webinar, like I said, with the Conversation Project, and we have Kate DeBartolo, who is the Senior Director at the Conversation Project. And thank you, Kate, for turning on your video. So we are honored that Kate is able to join us today. But before we get started, just a few logistical reminders. We're going to have about 15 minutes at the end of the webinar for questions. So if you're joining us live, I invite you to put your questions in the chat, or you can put it in the Q&A box where you're able to submit questions anonymously if you'd like to. So before I turn it over to Kate, I just wanted to say thank you for joining our webinar series today. Really, our objective is to provide information, content, resources that meet your needs as family caregivers. So feel free to email us at any time. I'll put our email in the chat. But for those of you watching the recording, it's masscaregiver@mass.gov. And so I'll turn it over to you, Kate. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction, Molly. It's lovely to be with everybody. I am calling in from a very warm Washington, D.C., although I know that you guys are having some warmth as well. I grew up just outside of Boston, went to school out there, lived in Boston for a long time. So it's great to be back with you. And I'm so grateful to be able to speak to a group of caregivers. I hope that today's session will be helpful, give you a little bit of background on our organization, but mostly focusing on tips and tricks for having important conversations. So I'm going to get everything started here. Okay, we practiced this, having the slides advance. So want to talk to you a little bit about the Conversation Project. I'll share more about some of the resources we have to help people have conversations for care through the end of life. But I want to start with my own story. I think that this is one topic where all of us have some personal experience and it affects all of us. I've been with the Conversation Project for 10 years now. We're housed within the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, which is based in Boston. I've been there for 16. And this project has been something I've been so passionate about, and some of it's personal experience that I imagine many of you would have as well. I have wedding pictures here that are now nearly 10 years old, but I joke that, wedding photography is so expensive, I might as well get as much use out of it as I can. But you see a picture of me with my husband on the left-hand side. When we got married, he and I had conversations about what we would want for care through the end of life. And he answered every question as if he was 85 years old with Alzheimer's in a nursing home. And yet, event. And so we realized we needed to have conversations, but what we would want is something unexpected occurred. I've got a picture with my sisters on the upper right-hand side. The youngest one's almost 20 years younger. I've got we kind of all that side. And she's one of 7, and to see how well those 7 siblings got on the same page. There was one decision maker. How did they all not have infighting? And so I think that's one of the things that I'm so passionate about with this work. When we talk about medical choices and care through the end of life, I clearly want the person whose end of life we're discussing to have a good experience with that, but I am really passionate about this on behalf of caregivers and survivors and the people who afterwards need to be able to maintain relationships or grief, the loss of somebody, without the complexity or complications that some of that grief can have if people aren't on the same page. So I would love in the chat if people just want to type in your preferred name, maybe that, who are the people in your life that you're accountable to or support, or why it is that you thought this session would be interesting to attend, because I always love hearing where people are reaching out from. And I'll keep an eye on that as we keep going. So I mentioned that the Conversation Project is a public engagement initiative with the goal to help people share their wishes for care through the end of life. We have no preference for the type of care somebody may choose. We want to encourage these conversations to happen early and often and before a crisis. We know that a crisis is a really hard time to learn. And so kind of say how much easier this would be if it were around the kitchen table and not in the ICU. We are an initiative of the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, as I mentioned, and were founded originally by Ellen Goodman, who was a Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist from the Boston Globe, based on her experience in caring for her mother and realizing that they had spoken about so many different topics in life except for this. And Ellen really felt like she faced a cascading number of decisions that she didn't feel prepared for. And when speaking with friends and colleagues who had lost somebody in their life, she felt like one of the differences between people who had a good or bad experience, which is not to say that it wasn't hard, really had a lot to do with how much people had these conversations. And so the goal is to create kind of this understanding in public that this isn't something you have to wait for a doctor to bring up or a big legal fee to go along with it. These are conversations that we can be having with people in our life. And for us, I don't want to discount the value, especially National Healthcare Decisions Day coming up. There's a big emphasis on people having these conversations and maybe documenting it, a healthcare proxy form or getting that on paper. But for us, we're particularly focused on the conversation piece because it doesn't do us much good if somebody's filled out a legal form and it is sitting in a manila folder in some filing cabinet and nobody knows about it. Or I spoke to somebody who said, yes, I have that, it's in a safety deposit box, but I haven't told my family about it. Or, oh yes, I had shoulder surgery 13 years ago. I brought this up with my doctor then. I'm sure they still have it on file now. That's what, for us, we want to what people's wishes are. We know that we can't plan for everything. There's no way to address every hypothetical scenario that could play out, but we can talk about what matters to us with the people who matter most to us. And that's a phrase that you'll hear me say, that this is less about what's the matter with you and more about what matters to you. And those are the conversations we really want to encourage people to have, because then we can hopefully kind of pay attention to what those values are for someone. And that makes it much easier to make decisions in the future if needed based on the values that somebody has. And, I'll be talking a lot about conversations, but particularly when we're speaking with caregivers, and trying to elicit wishes from somebody that we may be caring for. One thing I really want to mention is just how important listening is in this, that sometimes we want to go forward and say, here's what I'm worried about, or here's what I would want in your situation, or here's what I want for you, but to really be focused on listening to what somebody's telling us. And sometimes silence is a valid form of participation, or somebody not wanting to go there, that is telling us something. And I love this quote about how it's often through the quality of our listening, not the wisdom of our words, that we're able to have this, profound change with people. And I just really want to encourage that as part of what we recommend with this work. And there's a great quote by Dr. Atul Gawande, who wrote the internationally best-selling book, Being Mortal, about how our ultimate goal, after all, is not a good death, but a good life to the very end. And that's something I see in my work over these last 10 years. People may hear about my work and say, oh, you just work all in end of life and death and dying. And I don't see it that way. I see my work and these conversations as really about how somebody wants to live their life through the end. It is, the dying part is a small piece, but there are a lot of choices and values that people may have that can affect how they live with the days, however many days we have left, what is a good day for somebody and how can we focus on that part. So we have a website, theconversationproject.org, where you can access different materials. We have free conversation starter guides. I've got some of the pictures here. I'll also hold up, printed out versions of it. That's how I like to use it. But tips on how to start conversations, how to choose a healthcare proxy, or perhaps for many of you, how to be a healthcare proxy, and tips for how to talk with a healthcare team. We have 2 different caregiver guides, one for people with Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia, and that's actually just been newly released this month. We've made some edits there, as well as for caregivers of a child with serious illness. So these are all available in English, Spanish, and Chinese, and you can download them for free off of our website. We've also worked with Ariadne Labs, which is another Boston-based organization. Atul Gawande actually founded the organization. And we created a workbook for people living with serious illness that actually never mentions end-of-life care, because we know for some people that is a topic that is just too far in the future, whether it's actually too far in the future, or they emotionally don't want to go there, or maybe they have been diagnosed with a serious illness that's not terminal at the moment, but it still is going to affect the way they live. And we really want to center future medical decisions around this concept of what matters most. And so this is a workbook that helps an individual or their caregiver go through and help identify some of these values to make it that much easier to speak with providers or other people in your life while coping with that serious illness. And I'll be sure to share with Molly different links and everything that we can get out for people afterwards. In April of 2020, we also worked with Ariadne Labs to create a guide on, being prepared with COVID-19. If somebody were to get COVID, especially then, how would that affect their thoughts and wishes? And you can take a look at that as well. And on our website, we've got lots of different blogs and individual stories that people have shared. Some of you may recognize Reverend Gloria White Hammond from Bethel AME congregation in the Boston area. Here in the lower left, we've worked with her and her team a lot. But there are some really good, some lighthearted stories, some more serious stories, like this one on the upper right of somebody who really just wanted her family and friends to know that she wanted her chin and upper lip hairs to be trimmed if she were ever not able to take care of that herself. So when we first started the Conversation Project, it was now over 10 years ago, we originally thought, let's create a website, have some of these tools available for people. We're going to try to kind of go through traditional media to help people realize these are conversations you can have at home. And that's what we thought the program was going to be. And we very quickly started to hear from different community groups saying, can I bring this to my region? So this is a little screenshot from a kind of Zoom-like call that we had a little while ago with different community leaders all over the country who are saying, can I bring this to Boulder, Colorado? Or my congregation wants to do this. Hospital associations, parent-teacher conference groups. I mean, it's really, we've been trying to reach people where they live, work, and pray and learn, and have seen everything from employers who are introducing this, realizing that their employees many times are caregivers when they go home, or universities that are offering courses, congregations that are helping with kind of preaching or pastoral care around this topic. So it's been really exciting to see how individual groups have taken this and really translated it to their community, because it's not just a language translation, but the way this is introduced in Miami, Florida is going to be different than Barrington, Illinois. And so we provide a lot of resources to help community leaders take this on in their region as well. But so that's just a little bit of background about us. And I want to now kind of dive into the idea of how this conversation starts with you. And maybe at the moment, I would invite you to take off your caregiving hat, or thinking of the person that you provide care for, and really be thinking about yourself at the moment. One way we know that is so helpful for introducing this with others is if we walk the walk ourselves and do this planning ourselves as well. And so I want to introduce you to some of the prompts that are in our conversation guide, just to kind of help you be familiar with it. And then I'll share with you some of the tips and tricks we've learned from traveling around the country with this. So I mentioned to you the idea of focusing on what matters. And one of the first prompts in our guide is this an open-ended question to finish the sentence of what matters most to me through the end of my life is fill in the blanks. And you may wish to share that publicly or to think about it yourself right now. We have seen responses that go from the lighthearted to the serious. One woman who was saying, I really, really hate having the sheets tucked in around my feet in a bed. And if I'm ever in a situation where I can't speak for myself, I want to be sure nobody's thinking I'm getting cozy and tucking my sheets in. That really matters to me. Other people want to talk about, they care about being pain-free or in a hospital with really excellent nursing care. No right or wrong answers, just kind of a wide range of what comes up for people. And when we take a look at the types of responses that we've seen, you can see here the larger the word in the word cloud here, the more commonly it was brought up by people, and how few of these answers have to do with medical terminology. It's not about CPR and feeding tubes and those kinds of topics. It's more about the values people have and how they hope to feel at the end of life. And when we know that there's, over 90% of people know that these are important conversations to do, they want to do them, and they want to be careful about not offending somebody in their life, or they don't quite know how to get started. We try to provide both some icebreakers, but also these scale questions, I would call them. It's often easier for people to respond to where do you fall along the spectrum rather than fully open-ended questions. So we have a variety of them, like this one at the bottom, that in many ways I feel like is one of the most important questions. If you could only ask one question of your person to understand their choices, it's that idea of when it comes to your medical treatment, are your concerns that you'll receive not enough care or too much care? I've got a friend whose parents fall on the exact opposite ends of that spectrum. And it's really helpful that she understands that so that if she's ever in the position of making choices on their behalf, she can do that. I like to say that going through these questions and talking about them really help us practice and use the muscles that many of you, I'm sure, have been using in providing caregiving support. But the idea being that it won't be the first time we try to have these conversations when a decision needs to be made. In Atul Gawande's book, Being Mortal, there's a scene where one of his colleagues is, I think, a palliative care doc, if I'm remembering it correctly, and her father's going in for a pretty major procedure. And she realizes she hasn't asked him, what would a good day be like to you, or what's kind of worth going through more intervention for. And he said, if you have to make a decision, as long as I can watch football and eat chocolate ice cream, I want you to do everything you can. So it comes down to like that level of a sentence that gave her a framework that when the surgeon did come out and say, we're experiencing a complication here, we're going to go forward, but your father's going to be paralyzed. How do you want us to go forward? She said, well, if he can watch football and eat ice cream, he says, do everything you can, get back in there. So those are the kinds of things where I'm not trying to make light of the conversation, but to realize that sometimes you can come down to even a sentence or a framing that makes it easier to make future choices. And then we ask people to make a plan. Who are you going to talk to about this? When are you going to do it? How do you want to practice like what you're going to say? And how do we think this person's going to best respond to it? So if I'm trying to ask somebody their wishes, I really want to pay attention. This goes back to the listening principle of how will the person I'm trying to engage best receive this message? There's a woman we met in Akron, Ohio, who said, I made dessert for my family for Thanksgiving, and I held all of it hostage one year and said, no pumpkin pie till you tell me how you want to die, and made everybody go around the table and say what their wishes were. And that was appropriate in her family, and it would be so inappropriate in other families. And so really to pay attention to if somebody wants this conversation brought up while you're on a walk, or if they'd want a heads up that this is coming, kind of making a plan of how you want to introduce it. And we think it's important to have this conversation early and often. We often talk about, coming of age. When people are 18, 21, they're moving out of the house or changing states, or their parents aren't their automatic decision maker going forward. It's a really important time to be sure that there's a plan in place for who somebody's proxy could be. And we've seen many younger people actually very open to this from a perspective of, some people like, I love mountain biking, and I realize there's risk in that, or natural disasters or terrorism activity. There's kind of this acknowledgement that things don't always go the way we hope they will, and let's have a plan in place. So we want to do it regularly before a medical crisis. So maybe that's to revisit every April, April 16th. The reason National Healthcare Decisions Day is April 16th is because a Benjamin Franklin quote that nothing is certain in life but death and taxes. So take care of your taxes, then work on your advanced care planning. Maybe it's something you revisit every decade, but it's not a one and done type activity. People's wishes can change over time. Different life events, we mentioned college. It's certainly true with marriage or divorce, or a time where maybe a decision maker might change, or somebody has children. If there's a death in the family, being sure we're up to speed I've seen that in my family. If somebody's proxy has died, it's like, oh, I better update my own proxy information now, if my proxy is no longer here. A major trip, I'll give the example of my father went on a month-long cross-country motorcycle ride. And he and I had conversations about his wishes beforehand, but now we wanted to have it specifically related to this trip. If something unexpected happens with an accident, does that change what you would want? And then when somebody's newly diagnosed with a serious illness, it's really a chance again to go through that workbook or to think through how do we want to approach this illness, or if we have a better view or trajectory of what's coming next, let's start to talk about it. So again, wanting these conversations to be early and often. And then we provide a variety of icebreakers for people. Current events end up being really helpful, or TV shows, movies, books. For people who like the show This Is Us, there was a lot of conversation in the series finale around conversations with the family. Grey's Anatomy maybe has an episode that covers the topic. With public figures like Jimmy Carter choosing hospice, that can be an opening to say, when I realized such and such made me think that I don't know what you would want in that situation. Could we talk about that a little bit more? I think you guys all have the best excuse of all. If you attended this session, there was, this person who was telling me about it. I realized that this is something we should do, and there's some resources we can use. So trying to give you kind of excuses or icebreakers to bring it up. And then I mentioned that we have resources on choosing a healthcare proxy, which I just want to name that it doesn't always have to be the oldest child or a spouse. We have some fun videos on our website about this, but really thinking about who's somebody who can understand what matters most to you and is willing to kind of do what you want, not necessarily what they would want in the situation, and somebody who feels comfortable speaking up. That's a really important piece, and we could do a whole other session on choosing or being a proxy, but I just really want to call out that resource. So with that, I want to pause and dive into tips that we have heard from around the country in case they're helpful as you are trying to honor somebody's wishes or elicit somebody else's wishes or think about your own. And the first is to really think about the role somebody wants to play in their own choices. I was at an event in Las Vegas, and there was a woman who was going through our guide, and she was like, I really just don't care. I don't have a preference on any of these questions. I just want my kids to decide what makes them feel best when the time comes. And we realized that is the conversation she needs to have with her kids. So they aren't thinking, I don't know, mom never talked about this, we don't know what she wants. If she could just let them know, I don't have any big preferences, I want you to decide, that's her conversation. Whereas author Katie Butler here, you can see her picture in a little screenshot from a blog post that she wrote for us. She had a lot of opinions on what she wants based on the experience caring for her father who had dementia, as well as a pacemaker, and there were some medical interventions taken that she does not want for herself. And so she went like bullet point by bullet point of every single thing she wants somebody to follow if they are her medical advocate in the future. And so that idea of, do you want people to do what makes them more comfortable or exactly what you've said? That's an important part of the conversation to have. Similarly, to think about the type of care that somebody may want. We really encourage people to have these conversations with their current state, mind, and body. So sometimes I'll be talking to somebody and they say, well, I don't know if I'm going to be in a car accident or if I'm going to get cancer. And that's almost why we want these conversations to happen regularly and focus more on what matters to you, because there is no way for us to talk about every hypothetical scenario that could play out. Like my husband, imagining some future state 40 years in the future. So to think about what would you want now if we're relatively healthy, younger, like what would I want if something unexpected occurred? And then we can always revisit that over time. It's also we hear a lot about the concept of home, and that home is not always feasible. I think 70% of people say they want to die at home, and 70% of people are dying in healthcare facilities, which is not necessarily that their wishes aren't being honored, but there is a disconnect between what people think they want and what is possible to receive. And so to really try to unpack what is most important, because I remember a woman coming to us at an event in tears, just saying, my grandmother's only wish was to die at home, and her Alzheimer's got so difficult to manage that we couldn't do it. And I feel like we didn't honor her one request. So I would just encourage people to unpack that a little bit more. For my grandmother, it was that she really wanted to be with her cat. She was willing to go anywhere or be treated anywhere as long as her cat could be with her. And we were able to find a facility where that was possible. For other people, it might be that they want to have a private room or have their own artwork up or be near family to have visitors or home cooked meals. Because we just know that it's not always medically feasible. It's not always financially feasible, physically feasible. Remember a person in New York City saying, I'm on a 5th floor walk up. This isn't a possibility, but here's what we can do to try to make that a more comfortable experience. And to really be wary of anybody who says, if I ever get like that, pull the plug or give me the whole enchilada, because as we often know, there isn't always a plug to be pulled, but generally what people are trying to get at is a preference for kind of comfort versus treatment solutions. And I hope to never hear a provider say, there's nothing more we can do for you, Ms. Jones. I think there may not be new curative treatment options, and yet we can do a lot to provide aggressive comfort care. And so if somebody's kind of saying those types of words, to try to probe a little bit further for it. The other is to think about the role others might play. This goes back to that idea of choosing a healthcare proxy. I should have backed this up, and many of you may be familiar that an individual is able to make their own healthcare choices as long as they are functionally able to do that. It becomes an issue if they are incapacitated medically or unable to speak, where somebody else has to be the proxy or the decision maker for them. And finding that person can be, for some people, it's very obvious who they want to choose. For other people, it's not. There was a woman in Hawaii who we met who said she was just trying to be proactive. She asked her husband if he would be the healthcare proxy and wanted to share what she wanted. And he was like, I can't do it. Don't put me in that position. I would never be able to honor what your wishes are as you've laid them out. I would sit by your side for 20 years holding your hand in a vegetative state, and I just don't put me in that situation. And she went to her son, who said, oh, I got it, Mom. You don't want any intervention ever. I'll never let anybody hook you up to a machine, which was also not what she said. Her middle child cried the entire time and couldn't handle the conversation. And her youngest is the one who is like Goldilocks, just listened, understood that depending on prognosis, you'd be willing to try certain things, and when would you not? And that became her healthcare proxy. So really thinking, sometimes it's a cousin or a friend or somebody who might be one layer out, so that that feels like a better solution of who to choose. There are some congregations who have helped match people to be proxies. We have some resources for solo agers, folks who may not have natural family or friend who could play the role. And so we have resources for that. And also the importance of telling more than one person. I mentioned in my mom's family, she was one of 7, and my mom was the healthcare decision maker. She had a healthcare background, but it was so important that the other 6 siblings knew that about her, and that there was not infighting about who was going to be the healthcare decision maker. And there was a woman in Florida who said, you know, I'm my husband's healthcare proxy. We've had that conversation. I know what he wants. I've documented all of that. And I now realize, you know, I'm his second wife, and he's got 2 adult children, and it would cause World War III if something happened to their dad and they didn't know that I'm the one who's in charge. And he can just cut that off and say, hey guys, wanted you to know we've been doing some stuff, and Barbara's my healthcare decision maker. Here's what I want you 2 to do. So avoiding what we call that seagull effect of somebody from out of town who kind of swoops in on the whole plan, dumps all over it, and takes back off. How we can make sure not everybody has to have a really in-depth conversation, but even if it's an email out to anybody who might feel like they have a say in somebody's care, to just identify who the real decision maker is. We often hear that from clinicians, and this is not legal advice, but how much more a clinician would prefer a family all coming in on the same page without legal documents in place, rather than somebody waving around a 10-year-old form and another person saying, well, I talked to Mom last week, but she said this. You know, when there's a lot of that confusion, it can be really hard for not only the patient and the family, but also the providers. And to beware of family or caregiver bullying. There was an event we had in Orlando a few years ago where a woman got up in front of 250 people crying, and she said, I've been listening this morning and I realized I owe my father a tremendous apology because he's really sick right now. And she named off his different conditions that he had, and he got worse last night and he wouldn't go to the hospital. And my siblings and I laid it on so thick. We were calling him, texting him, showing up at the house, putting on this full court press of, your grandchildren need you, you need to go. And I'm realizing now he's trying to tell us something and we have not been listening. So I've texted my siblings, we're going to have a family meeting tonight, but just being careful of imposing what our own wishes are, either the kind of care we would want in that situation or what we hope this other person chooses, and trying to listen. And that really comes out, especially in cases with Alzheimer's or dementia, where somebody can't speak for themselves. That idea of how do we still keep, mom at the center of these decisions? Not what do I think I would want, but what do we think she would want in this moment? And for some people, there's a woman, I got this idea of the Eeyore example. There's a woman who referred to her husband as Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, and a little bit mopey and didn't really want to talk a lot about this topic. And she found it much easier to ask him yes or no questions. So to say, I realize you don't want to talk about this much, and that's fine, but is it right to assume that you would want me to be the decision maker? That had really been weighing on her, wanting to confirm that it was her. And then she was like, okay, here's what I think you would want if I had to make choices, listed out, like, does that sound right? And it allowed him to be a little bit more yes, no in his answers, and he was able to tweak one part of it, but realizing that not everybody's going to want to do a big sit down conversation and looking through a guide, and that was easier for her. And just to realize that this is a chance to strengthen relationships. They can many times be very loving conversations. They can be funny or remembering important people in somebody's life. I remember there was a woman who was saying that her mom had not, they were trying to talk about it and the mom had just said, oh, I just don't want to be a burden to you, so you can let me go. And it was a chance for her and her brother to say, Mom, this would be an honor. You've cared for us so much of our life. We would love to be able to care for you. And it helped bring them closer together. So in some of our research, we've seen that everybody doesn't want to upset each other. A caregiver maybe doesn't want to upset the person they're caregiving for by asking this. And then same things, the person at the center may not want to upset their family members by talking about it. So just realizing that there's ways of approaching it that can be very positive. We've done a lot of messaging work, particularly with the Massachusetts Coalition for Serious Illness Care. They've done some national work as well around messaging that resonates with all different kinds of people. And the two messages that really worked best, regardless of who you're trying to engage in this, is the idea of gaining control. You've made all these major life choices of your own over the last however many decades, and why leave this up to chance? And the idea that conversations help clarify. That sometimes people say, oh, I don't need to talk about it because my kids know what I would want. But it's a real chance to clarify what your wishes are, to have, a sense of some conditional control when so many things may feel out of control. This is a chance to gain some of that back, as well as to demand shared decision making. The idea that we can have a say in our care, and that we hope that clinicians actually want to hear what somebody wants. They may be able to recommend a variety of treatment options if they know what matters to someone. I remember Atul Gawande talking about that, of somebody saying, I don't know, doc, what would you do if this were your mother? And him saying, well, I don't know what your mother likes to do, or what is a good day for her. And I think that emphasis on what matters is so important. Is it that somebody really wants to be able to get back to church on weekends, or would they be okay watching a church service, or having somebody come and do communion at the home, or really kind of understanding what you want? The providers can then make recommendations based on that. And then the message that resonates the most across all different programming is, as you're having these conversations, even if they don't end up in a perfectly tied up, package with a bow of knowing exactly what somebody wants, just the idea that we'll figure this out together, that you're not alone, that I'm going to be here to help you, can really continue to kind of break the ice and smooth out these conversations. So before we jump to some Q&A and looking at the chat, I just wanted to share a few final items. One was a letter that we received from someone talking about how she had been really concerned of elderly grandparents. There was nobody to take care of them. I don't have to read the entire thing to you because you have it here, but the conversations in the past had not gone well. And she says that on the flight, she looked at our guides, and as we have highlighted here, I started asking questions instead of telling them how worried I was. And the questions opened up conversation that then did result in, I can be their healthcare proxy. They've agreed to move. And there was just so much relief on both sides for people. I think that's where we get back to that idea of conversations clarifying. So my hope today would be that you guys all take a look and complete the conversation starter guide for yourselves, or, that walk the walk of before trying to introduce this with somebody that you may care for. Can you do it yourself? Think about your own wishes. Who might you pick to speak about it, and to bring that concept of what matters back within your sphere of influence, whatever that may be. And perhaps today, right now, you could text somebody of, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this over the weekend, or heard this session, it made me realize I want to talk. We know that for some people, conversations are easier to broach over email, or kind of introducing, saying, I remember a friend who said, my parents knew that they couldn't get all of us to sit down and talk about this together. So they sent out an email with particular instructions to all the siblings, so that we could at least have something to reference, and then we could one-on-one have additional conversations with them. And I want to share a letter that I guess it's kind of a letter, I almost see it as a poem, that one of the physicians that we worked with, Dr. Karen Boudreau, at an early session where we were founding the Conversation Project, took out a piece of lined paper, you can see on the right-hand side what that looked like, and wrote a letter to her daughters. And it says, if you're faced with a decision that you're not ready for, it's okay. I'll try to let you know what I would want for various circumstances. But if you come to something we haven't anticipated, it's okay. And if you come to a decision point and what you decide results in my death, it's okay. You don't need to worry that you've caused my death. You haven't. I will die because of my illness or my body failing or whatever. You don't need to feel responsible. Forgiveness is not required. But if you feel bad, responsible, guilty, first of all, don't. And second of all, you are loved and forgiven. If you're faced with a snap decision, don't panic. Choose comfort, choose home, choose less intervention, choose to be together at my side, holding my hand, singing, laughing, loving, celebrating, and carrying on. I will keep loving you and watching you and being proud of you. And I can only read it without crying now because I've read it enough times, but I just think how powerful that is for her children to have in their mom's writing something telling them, like, you are not responsible. I love that line of, I will die because of my illness or my body failing, not something that you have caused. And that is one of the key messages that we just want to convey. I remember a brother and sister duo who were, their mom was trying to talk to them about making choices. And the son was saying, I can't do it. I can't make these choices for you, Mom. This is going to be too hard. And she said, I am making the choices. You are not. The whole point of this conversation is I'm making the choices. I just need you to be my voice if I can't speak for myself at that time. So it was really taking that burden off of them to say, I'll make the hard choices and you just be my voice. I really like that framing. So if you want to engage with this work more, if you're interested in doing some of the community work or seeing who might be in your area, I'll take a look at the chat to see where people are based, because there's a lot of great programming going on in Massachusetts, and especially Cape and Islands have a lot going on. And then follow us on social media. We have a lot of tips and tricks, some ideas that kind of break these into more bite-sized pieces, and those can be helpful for sharing with people in your life as well. So I'm going to pause there and take a look at chat, Q&A, see what we have. And I don't know, Molly, if you can help me with that.
Hi, absolutely. Thank you, Kate. That was wonderful. So I jotted down a few of the questions that we've gotten in the chat and the Q&A so far. So the first one was someone asking if they could get the books or I think the tools that you had mentioned early on in your presentation.
I'm going to put into the chat right now. Let me make sure I can send it to everyone. there's a link to our website where you can find all of the different guides in English, Spanish, and Chinese, and you can just download them to, we don't, everything we have is free, but we don't pay for printing. But you can get those printed. We do have a place where you can order it online, and there's no, there's a charge for it to be printed, but we're not making money off of that. But you can download it yourself there too.
Great. Thanks, Kate. The next question, Nancy said she's a certified patient advocate. She sits on the board of directors for her local senior center. She wanted to know if there was a presentation that she could give at her local senior center. It's a great question, Nancy. Thank you.
Okay, so this is good. I'm just going to keep popping links in for people. So we have, as I mentioned, that kind of reaching people where they live, work, pray, learn. We have an entire section of our website for faith leaders or community leaders. I've just included the community page here, and it has everything from like a community getting started guide, how to kind of a roadmap for doing this in your region. But we also have tips on how to host sessions. Sometimes, if you have 30 minutes to talk versus 3 hours to facilitate an entire starter guide session, we have slides and scripts and everything that you can use that are listed there.
Wonderful. And I'll just say someone had asked if they could share the recording with a family member, and that's wonderful. This recording will be up on our YouTube channel next week, but if you wanted, for example, me to send the link to you when that becomes available, definitely let me know. You can let me know in the chat or email us, and I'm going to put the email address I mentioned earlier, caregiver at mass.gov. And that's if you have ideas for future webinars, you have questions for Kate, you'd like the recording to be shared with you directly, anything like that, definitely use that email address. Next question in the chat was, this may be on your website, but looking for ways to engage people early versus when in crisis mode. Is there an age group you find particularly receptive, 40s, 50s, etc.? Great question.
Yeah, that is great. And it's been interesting to see our website analytics of the age of visitor and how that has continued to go down with time. And it feels like there's a lot of sandwich generation folks who may be parents of young children and having aging parents who they want to be supporting, and they realize they might be in a proxy position and they want to figure out how to engage with their parents. And that's some of what we've been seeing on social media as well. I think that there's been every age has been receptive, and it's been interesting now doing this for the last 10 years, because there was a group that I would have considered, well, they were mid 50s, 60s when we started, and they were thinking about their parents. And now it's 10 years later, and the same groups are coming back together to say, okay, we need to have these conversations more for ourselves and to be sure that our kids know it. So I would say there can be different programming to reach people, and that idea of do this yourself and who do you want to engage can be really helpful. And I noticed in the chat above there were a bunch of examples of folks with different forms of dementia. So I'm going to include the English link right here for the guide about Alzheimer's and dementia for caregivers. One of the things that has been updated in this guide in the month of April that we just updated was feedback around the concept of denial. And when people were saying, oh, it's hard to have this conversation because the person in my life is in denial about how bad their care has gotten. And to understand that denial is not really quite the right term to use for somebody, because Alzheimer's or these other forms of dementia really cause changes to the brain, or somebody's really just that much more unaware of what's going on. And all the more reason, there's tips on what to do around conversations if it's early stage versus mid versus late. And so hopefully that's a helpful tool.
Wonderful, thank you, Kate. And I think this is our last question, unless someone wants to put something else in the chat. How might someone get more involved in this space if they're interested?
Well, I'll go back one. Let me see, I gotta close that on my little browsers here. We have on our website this kind of get involved tab, and I'll include that on in the chat as well. so you can see a map of who's already involved. We see everything from people who just look at their own social sphere. I'm going to talk about this more with my friends and family and just tell them that I'm doing it, that I hope other people do it. We find that people are much more responsive to hearing from their peers than just a celebrity talking about the importance of this, although we are seeing more celebrities particularly talk about the caregiving role. So it could be that, friends, family, you've got a book club that you're a part of and you read Being Mortal, or you introduce, there's all sorts of programming out there now, Death Over Dinner and different projects you could do. If you are employed somewhere, talking to the HR departments about how can we provide support for more caregivers within our community. If you belong to a congregation, is there a way that this could be brought up into a ministry? So just thinking about your own sphere of influence and what that might be, because we can all be influencers in that way.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kate. And thank you everyone for joining. This was wonderful. Kate's email, I believe, is in the chat, but feel free to reach out. I also put, and it's right here on the slides, which we'll be sharing. And if you have ideas for future webinars, comments, questions, please reach out to Kate or to me for our webinar series, Mass Caregiver at mass.gov. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kate.